Welcome back to the School of Hard Knocks podcast. It's your host, Mark W. Knox. We are back again for another engaging episode. Listen, we got a special treat for you once again. As a part of what we're doing this spring and summers, we're bringing back alumni, right? So what is an alumni? Alumni of the School of Hard Knocks are people who have been interviewed, right? So again, these are stories told by successful people in order to create more successful people, in order to inspire and motivate you. We're at a point now where we have built up a pretty nice portfolio of individuals that are thought leaders in their field, to be quite honest with you. And this show is absolutely no exception. So as you see and hear, again, this is going to be the YouTube debut, right? Assuming everything goes well with this recording. This is going to be the YouTube debut. We've got from episode number 68, Olguy Songolo. Olguy, how you doing today, sir? You doing all right?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. From episode number 61, we've got Danielle Thompson. Danielle, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks.
Excellent. And from episode 57, our local Netflix superstar, Mr. Marcus LaCour. How you doing, sir?
Good, fam. How are you?
Doing good, man. So let's start off with Marcus. Let's do some quick intros. Marcus, why don't you tell the people who you are and what you're all about?
I am, well, as Mark said, I am Marcus LaCour. I am an HR generalist professionally working in employee relations. To Mark's point, you may have seen me on Netflix in a series called Say I Do Surprise Weddings, episode 1, season 1. Shameless plug, now streaming on Netflix. But I'm also a minister, and I am an advocate for lower insulin costs, particularly lower prescription costs. So I am a P4AD advocate, which stands for Patients for Affordable Drugs.
That's right. Danielle, how about you? Tell us who you are and what you're all about.
Yes. So my name is Danielle Thompson. I am the owner of Destined by DPT, where I make lots of handmade accessories, to make yourself look beautiful and feel beautiful. I'm a brand ambassador for plus size women. So, hey, if you plus size, hey, I love all the curves. And that's pretty much it. That's me.
Hey, it's all good. That your episode, we're still getting weekly downloads on your episode. Believe it or not, all the way like over 20 episodes ago, we still get quite a few weekly downloads. So thank you very much.
Exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Olguy Songolo, my friend, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. Busy day, but yeah, we're doing good.
You working out that podcast personality, right? You doing some other shows,
right?
Yeah,
I had to. I started with you, kind of like matriculated onto different people.
Hey,
so
man.
I was like, all right, let me try to get this,
yes, sir.
This flow going.
That's what it's all about, man. You putting that microphone and them quality headphones to good use. I really,
like you, man.
Hey man,
I'm
just happy you started with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You started with us.
Sure.
You did. So listen, on this week's show, we're going to get into a conversation about networking. And I know that does not seem very exciting on the surface. I know networking is something that a lot of us think about as something that, needs to be done, but not necessarily the top of our list of things to do. The reality about networking is it's so much more than just introducing yourself to people. Right. And then there's a fine line because you also don't want to be in a situation where you seem self-serving or you seem what's the word I'm looking for? Self-promoting. Right. So that definitely is critical to what we're trying to do. And listen, I hear a slight echo, but I'm not necessarily worried about it. Hopefully it's not distracting to my people on the phone either. But listen, I want to get into it. So first question, whoever wants to take it. What the heck is networking anyway? Anybody want to jump in?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
Well, let me get the flow of juices going.
You know what I'm saying? Work it out.
Why? I literally just got off another podcast, so I'm kind of in that podcast mood right now. Well, networking for me, I'm kind of going to give my own opinion on it. I think it's just a group of people that kind of come together and either use social for, to get together to create any type of social atmosphere, friendship, partnership. I think it's pretty much a group of people that come together to kind of to build, to
Mm-hmm.
create, like I said, a relationship, to create a
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Now, where that relationship goes, it can be, like I said, it can be a business relationship, it can be a social relationship, it can be a personal relationship.
Yeah.
But I think that it does involve more than one person. It can be more. It can be one person to another person, or it can be a group of people that
Sure.
literally, meet, greet, come together, and establish a form of a relationship in those particular areas that I named. So that's just
Sure.
my brief overview.
Yeah. Danielle, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback on that, I definitely feel like networking is, not necessarily if you, because maybe not everyone's an entrepreneur right now, but it can help you just with your professional career, networking with people on your job. So, in order to maybe hear about other opportunities. So, it may not just necessarily be if you're an entrepreneur, but if you're listening and you like, hey, I've been in the same position for two
Mm-hmm.
years. Well,
Mm-hmm.
hey, have you been going to any of the networking opportunities to meet any of the higher ups and things like that? So, it's really also about building yourself and building your resume and building your network of people to build that network.
Yeah. How about you, Marcus? What you think, man?
Well, Danielle took the words right out of my mouth, and coming from an HR perspective, that's exactly what it is. It's being able to make that connection. It's being able to rub the right elbows. It's to Danielle's point. If you know for a fact you've been in the position for a couple years, but you don't quite know how to get to that next level, it's asking that person who may be in that position that you're in, that you're looking to get into, what's a day in the life like? Or even if it's like, hey, just to make an introduction, I know COVID kind of said, hey, we can't go out for coffee. So you send an email or you find out who they are on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn and you
Mm-hmm.
kind of connect with them that way. Uh, but it's also being able to kind of appreciate the fact that they're taking time. So if you are, tapping into a network saying, hey, thank you for spending this time with me, and
Right.
going forward, here's what I would like to do. Kind of setting up that expectation early, so that way they know, hey, either I can cultivate this person, I can possibly connect them to my network, or it's just a time for them to pick my mind. But either way, hopefully you're able to get something out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, networking again is one of those tricky things, right? Because, and Marcus, you mentioned LinkedIn. Much like other social media platforms, LinkedIn is only as good as you make it, right? So
Agreed.
much how we call people friends on Facebook that we don't necessarily know or we've never seen or even talked to, LinkedIn is similar in that sense of we make connections with people, but a lot of times we don't necessarily have a purpose, right? And I think networking is critical in a sense, but if it has no purpose, if you have no purpose in what you're trying to do, then I think it just becomes another relationship in kind of the fodder category, right? I mean, I know people that have thousands and thousands upon thousands of connections on LinkedIn and are unemployed, to be quite frank, right? Now I'm sure there's some opportunities within those connections, but if we don't have purpose in those connections, then it's kind of hard to leverage those. I want to get into some personal accounts. Marcus, I want to start with you. You made the decision while you were in the midst of filming that particular episode on Netflix. You made a decision to use that platform to get your message out, right? And
Absolutely.
that in itself opened up some doors for you, right? To obviously
It
become an
did.
advocate officially, really. So walk us through a little bit about that process, but I really want to understand your motivation behind using that particular platform and bringing light to a subject, obviously, that's close to you.
So if you haven't seen the show, what you'll see is I'm having a conversation with a chef, and we're talking about food for the wedding day. But early on, I made it known that, hey, I'm type 1 diabetic. You know, there are certain things, and let me paraphrase this by saying, if you're diabetic, you're listening to this, and you go, you can eat anything you want. You're absolutely right. However, I choose to eat select foods. Like, I don't eat pork or beef, or I don't eat sugar. Like, in all honesty, it's a waste of insulin for me to get some extra insulin for ice cream. But to each their own. Um, so we made the decision to incorporate it. We made the decision to talk about it. And once the show aired, I got a lot of people from the diabetic community that were reaching out to me and saying, hey, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your story. And for me, it's hard for me not to. Who I am, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a minister, but I can't hide that I'm diabetic also.
Right.
It's easier to conceal because I don't carry a pouch anymore or insulin pens, but I wear an insulin pump and a continuous glucose monitor. So if there's it looks like a phone on my hip, that's usually what it is. I'm giving myself, my meds.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they reached out. Someone from P4AD said, "Hey, we saw your show or we saw your episode. We loved it. We want to make sure we can connect. Let's see what we can do." So I said, "You know what? Cool. Let's take a shot."
Yeah.
And I did my research. Took a look at a lot of the laws that were in place, or a lot of the executive orders that were signed off by Donald Trump, and I studied them. And when I had the meeting with P4AD, I came to the table prepared. Like, I know that, the African American diabetic is a unicorn. However, it's that condition is impacting a lot more of us than you think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or being able to talk about how the average cost of insulin is 300, upwards of $300 per vial, and they might not be affordable for people in my community.
Right.
And being able to share my voice and them saying, hey, let's sit down, let's have you take these classes, and let's go from there. Took the classes. The classes were about 2 hours long each time. So being able to really kind of sit through and contribute. And then when the time came, they said, "Hey, we want to make sure we're able to put you into a commercial. Can we do that?
Wow.
Or
Yeah.
can we record your statement?" So I just had a statement that was aired in front of a few people from the big pharma companies and
Mm-hmm.
some researchers from various institutes throughout the country.
Okay.
Uh, and then I'm also shooting a commercial here this weekend that will be aired for the president.
Okay.
So these are things that I didn't think would come from this opportunity.
Sure.
But for me, it was being able to make that connection. I have a cause that drives me, and it's because I'm impacted by the condition, but I'm also driven by the fact that there are people who don't have this opportunity to voice their opinion, to voice their concerns about their medical condition, and doing it for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, it's completely honorable what you chose to do, because you could have continued to hold that near and dear and keep it as a personal flag, right? It's something that only you think about, right? But you actually put yourself out there. You offer that transparency, and now you're on a hopefully an international stage, at least a national stage of what really can be done and what really should be done. I mean, that's amazing, right? Um, you know, looking at that in contrast to Danielle, right? Danielle, I know that you started off in promotions, right? For a radio station, right?
Right.
Now that's like networking all day, every day. I mean, I'm assuming you came in contact with celebrities, you came in contact with people who could really get things done in the music business, quote unquote, right?
Right.
But it was probably more of an uphill climb. Now you're not in that anymore. However, I'm assuming, and this is really my question, that you still have a lot of those contacts from back then. Why don't you talk a little bit about kind of, where you started and how you're still leveraging that particular networking opportunity?
Okay. Um, Definitely radio is something that definitely opened up a lot of doors to relationships that I still hold near and dear. To the point where I haven't worked in radio since probably like 2009, and I still get together
Mm-hmm.
often
Mm-hmm.
with people who still work there who I didn't
Yeah.
even work with when I worked there. So I think, you know, building and keeping relationships is really important. Even if now I'm a recruiter. I work for Kroger, totally different sector. I don't really see myself going back into radio per se, but keeping relationships, how you said, purpose, your network needs to have purpose. You
Yep.
need to have so it's sometimes not even just about the business. You might not even still be in that sector, but keeping those relationships current, making sure I feel like for me, my business I would not have a business
Mm-hmm.
if it was for not networking and for the people around me. So having people around you that are positive people, like it's so important because I want to have a business. I have a friend right
Yeah.
now. She is the only reason, really, because I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur. That wasn't anything that was on my radar. I wanted to move up in the HR world. I like having my, 9 to 5. I get off work. I don't have to do anything else. That was my lane. You know what I mean? But now I am staying up late. It has totally changed my train of thought. So without networking, you don't even get to sometimes tap into your purpose. Because at the time, I did not know that having a business has now opened the doors for podcast. I'm hosting a big event here on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been opening the doors because now you're meeting different type of people. You're being put into different situations, or even like what you had mentioned earlier. It was saying your name being spoken in rooms that you're not even in anymore.
Exactly.
You know what I'm, and that's what it is. You want to have reach without even being in the room.
Right.
And that's really where, you have to, something I read that said networking sometimes isn't just about building right now, where you are. It can help you with your communication skills,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone isn't comfortable speaking amongst people. Sometimes me, I'm not comfortable sometimes with this face-to-face laptop. This is new to me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it allows you to break out of your comfort zone, to meet people, to connect with people, to relate with people. So yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
think.
No, no, seriously though, that's a good point. And one of the things that I really the theme that I'm hearing you say is really that is value, right? Bringing value to the situation. When I look at what Olguy is into and what he's doing with his company, Olguy, I mean you started from the bottom in a sense of not only trying to promote the product but really trying to build a brand, right? And comparably so, as an athletic company, you're relatively small. Let's just be honest, right? Among some of your would-be competitors, you're relatively small, right? Your marketing budget is not $1 billion. You know what I mean? So talk to us, Olguy, about really the importance and how critical it's been for you as the CEO to make those connections with individuals, right? To build your organization, build your brand on an international stage.
Um, well, that was a good question. Yeah, it was a little bit more difficult for me because I went from a complete different field of study to a whole industry that, like you said, is already saturated. So how am I going to come in and literally,
Right.
make a difference or
Right.
become the difference?
Right.
No pun intended with that one. So, um, well, in my situation, it was a little bit like, when I had said my story, my situation is a bit different because my networking skills had to develop by default.
Okay.
Because again, not having any experience, it's the networking that allowed me to create this product,
Yes.
to create the heelless athletic shoe, to create this technology. And part of it was just personality based, to be quite honest with you, because being in a foreign country, uh, the networking, as we say over there in China, the networking is by default because you kind of form your own cliques. You're in a foreign country, and anytime you see someone from the USA, you automatically get a bond with them because
Yeah.
you're like, yo, you're in China. What you doing in China? So we automatically start to bond, and before
Yeah.
you know it, you create those relationships because you're meeting someone that is working probably as a designer. You're meeting someone that's working as a developer. You're meeting someone that has a factory. So you naturally, these connections automatically start to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of times what most people do or fail to do is to keep in contact. They create that initial connection and then maybe a Christmas card here and there, text here and there, and then things start to matriculate and fade out. And then 10, 14 years down the line, to be extreme a little bit with it, they want to come back now. Hey, how you doing? Because there's now something that they need. And I think that that's where people fail to understand the difference
Right.
in, using someone versus creating a network.
Mm.
So in my experience, personally, keeping a strong network is what allowed me to actually build this product that is disruptive.
Yeah.
And not only a network within people that could help me, but people that could advise me as well.
Sure.
Because there were people that were there that had experience well over 30 years. I'm coming in there fresh, not knowing anything about shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking to people that have been doing this for big brand companies, as you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So meeting with them. And I think part of the networking that people tend to forget is we tend to, if you're an introvert, yeah, it might be a bit difficult. If you're an extrovert, it might be a little bit more easier for you.
Sure.
But I think people tend to forget that we're all humans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we think networking, we kind of put ourselves on a different pedestal than others. And I feel as if that creates a little bit of a barrier because you walk into a room and you see someone maybe in a suit and they say, oh, this is such and such.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, how am I going to go and approach them and
Yeah.
introduce myself? And like you said, you don't want to go and pitch yourself. You want to go and introduce yourself.
Big difference,
So
right? Big difference.
huge difference. You don't want to go pitch because they're hearing that all the time. You want to introduce yourself and create a commonality. Like for example, what we're doing now, we're creating commonality, which is what we're all entrepreneurs.
Yep.
We're coming together. We're all African American. We're all doing what we're doing to strive to be better, to scale ourselves and our communities.
Mm-hmm.
So that right there already creates a bond.
Yep.
Now, into our perspective fields, how do we help each other? How do we move forward? You never know. That's what the network is for. Because
That's right.
you might be in a predicament that the person next to you that you're talking with might be able to help you with. And just to cut it short, the biggest thing that I always tell people in networking is you can't go wrong by asking. People get nervous. I say, ask. There's no such thing as I can't ask or I won't ask. No, ask.
Yeah.
The only answer that you can get besides yes is what? No.
That's right.
Right. Even maybe, yeah. So ask. It doesn't hurt. People get so nervous asking that. I quite frankly,
Yeah.
I never understood. Me personally, I never understood why. Because for me, if I'm in a position where I know you can help me, I am going to ask you.
Yeah. You know what though? I mean, I definitely agree. However, I think we've all been involved in our fair share of multi-level marketing, right? I know I can definitely say I've been involved and I've been on both sides of it. I've been the marketer and the marketee, right? How do we navigate a situation where we're put in a position that we feel like the only way we can make money, the only way we can get ahead is to aggressively network and aggressively pitch? And what I really mean by that is when we get involved in multi-level marketing, and I'm not speaking ill will of it quite yet, but we get involved with it and we tend to turn people tend to turn their immediate circle into their marketplace, right? Their church members, their family members, their extended family, whatever. And it actually is counterproductive in a networking sense, right? So yeah, we've been taught to be aggressive. We've been taught to hunt. We've been taught to shoot your shot and things like that. But I really want you guys to talk to me about that fine line, right? When is too much too much? What do you think, Danielle? Your wheels are spinning.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. I don't necessarily. I haven't come into that. I did not have to do that necessarily for my brand. So I can't necessarily say what too much is, but I've been the receiver, how you kind of say, like the receiving end.
Yeah.
I feel like if you have a product, it speaks for itself. Like if you can, if you have to like beg someone or like pound someone, then maybe that's not the product that you need to be.
Well, it should speak for itself, Danielle. But we've also been taught that people buy from people they like, right? And we've been taught that we've been taught that you got to
sold all those Crocs today because it's Nicki Minaj.
Crocs been out. You know what I'm saying? But that's what we've been taught. We've been taught to hustle. We've been taught to be aggressive, right? And literally, I can tell you that I've been in relationships that have been destroyed because somebody overdid it. I can tell you that I've been manipulated from people who I thought their intentions were one thing when they wanted to connect, and then 2 lunches, 3 meetings in, they're trying to get me to sign up for this, and that. And it was completely, I'm a pretty clever guy and I still got, you know what I mean? Like I still got. So again, I mean, how do we differentiate? How do we walk that line from being self-serving and being, self-promoting in networking and being really genuine? I mean, I really like what Olguy said because it was rooted in humility. You know what I mean? He said there's a difference, obviously, between introducing yourself and pitching, right? So yeah, let's chop it up on that for a second. Marcus, you look like you thinking pretty intently over there as well.
So I can only think of it from an employment perspective, and I gave you an example.
Okay.
So I used to work at a place early on in my career. Uh, cut ties, went on to work for UC. And one day I got a phone call from a guy I hadn't heard from in 3 years.
Okay.
He calls, he goes, "Hey Marcus, I need a favor." I said, "Well, what's going on, man? How you been?" He said, "I'm good, but I'm in a bit of a jam." Like, okay,
Okay.
well, talk to me. What's going on? He said, I just lost my gig. I know you're still connected. Is there any other opportunities that you may know of that I may be a fit for? And so, you know what? I'm out of that sector of any sort of business right now. I'm in student affairs, so I don't know if I can help you here, but I still have some connects somewhere else. So
Yeah.
let me ask around. I asked a couple of friends that I knew that were higher ups at a couple schools, and one guy was like, "Send me his resume and let's see what we can do." So I sent him his resume, and the very next day he said, "You know what? I went ahead and scheduled him for an interview that Friday." That Monday he called and was like, "Yeah, I went ahead and hired him." So I called him. I said, "Hey,
Okay.
how'd the interview go?" He said, "Oh, good, man. I got a gig." I said, "Okay, well, how'd it go?" He's like, "Oh, man, listen, we just talked about you the entire time." So it wasn't even an interview.
Yeah.
But he was like, "Yeah, I appreciate you. I owe you lunch. Let's connect. Let's link up. Let's yada yada yada." So I said, "Okay, well, cool." 6 months went by.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear from him.
Of course.
And it was just like, man, you know what? I'm not mad at it because I knew for a fact it served its purpose. What I was mad at was the fact that he underperformed and put dirt on my name while he was leaving the company because he didn't live up to the standard that I would hope he would have lived up to as an employee. So if you're going to network and if you're going to make that bridge, make sure you're about your stuff. Because if you're pulling on someone else's network and you don't do what you're supposed to do, that may leave a bad taste in someone else's mouth.
No question about it.
That's true. That's good.
Go ahead, Olguy.
Yeah, I had to. He hit me with that last. I was like, yes, it was right on the dot. It was like he pinched the nerve. I was like, "Ooh, he got me right there with that one." Because he nailed it. That is it. And to piggyback on what he said, funny enough is you know, and even when I said my podcast, what I tell you, it's even the family members will capitalize on that to burn you. It's not just the friends or the colleagues. It's your family. You build a certain reputation to where you get now you're automatically their network because you're their family. So now they use you, right? Because let's step back for a little bit. Our net worth that we've built, we had to build. It took us to grind the grit.
No question about it.
Right? To build it, get to a point to where now it has some value. And the thing is, family members sometimes forget that, it's not just about just saying, "Oh, it's such and such." You have to there's a respect content that comes with it.
Yeah.
And there's a value that you have to appreciate. And we, as the people that have that network, have to be able to say no.
Ooh.
Oh, yes. That's something that's difficult. We don't know how to say no, especially if we're close to that person, especially if we're good-hearted people. And I always say this, a true entrepreneur, for me, in my opinion, in a business setting, you have to be able to separate that. Even if it's family, even if it's friends. I know.
Man, let me tell you.
We're gonna talk real. Let's have this conversation.
That's right, though. I mean, wow. There's people that I've conveniently forgotten to write the recommendation letter for. Because I couldn't say no. I missed the deadline. There's people that have called me and said, "Hey, I got a recruiter from a company that's going to call you, right, for a reference." And I've received the call, and as soon as they say, "Hey, I'm calling on behalf of such and such company for such and such," I say, "Hey, now's not a good time. You think you could call me back Thursday at 2?" That man never answered the phone because I didn't have much good to say. Right. And I didn't want to damage it. I just kind of wanted that recruiter to move on to the next name on the list. I think the reality of it, though, is you gotta, if you're going to make and take the energy to network, you got to be solid. And I think unfortunately, there's not enough solid people. There's just like people are just trying to hitch their wagon to you. I mean, I think Olguy said it best. I mean, he's got a family example. I really do. I think. Danielle, what you what you thinking?
It's better to give than to receive.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like you're only blessed when you can be a blessing to others. So I think that has something to do with the network and networking, because sometimes if you just help someone else, like you could
Mm-hmm.
just be thinking that it's a network thing, but just give. Maybe it's something that you can do to assist and help
Yeah,
them. That will leave
yeah,
a longer impression, positive impression, than, hey, well, when it's just all about your approach and all about the type of person you are too.
yeah.
I think sometimes we forget that networking isn't, it might not work for you if you're not a genuine person.
Man,
If you're not in it for the right intentions, if your intentions is,
yeah.
I just want to get, and I don't have to give anything and I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
do anything or work,
Mm-hmm.
then no, and it shows. And then you become, then that's the same thing. So network can work for you and your brand and your presence in the community. It can work for you, but networking can also not work for you if you are not a good person and you are not doing it the right way.
Yeah.
If you are not genuine about it, now everyone knows that, hey, don't mess with such and such, because they're gonna talk your head up, or they're
Oh
not
my
gonna
gosh.
follow through, or they're not gonna do what they say they were gonna do. So
Yeah.
networking is hand in hand. So what
Yeah.
part of the network do you want to be on?
I mean, it's almost like having a personal review page for yourself. Like, how hard is it to overcome like as a business owner? How hard? Thank God I've never had to deal with this. Is it to overcome a negative review? Like, or take it a step further on a personal level. Once you develop a negative reputation, it's pretty much a wrap.
Period.
It's pretty much a wrap, right? However, Danielle, in the same breath, we've also been trained with this one singular statement that has damaged so many people, that has messed up so many careers, that has had people thinking that they was way sweeter than they actually are. Okay. And don't get me wrong, this statement that I'm about to say, it works in some circles. It doesn't traditionally work in the circles that most of us are in. Let's just put it like that. But that statement is, it's not what you know, it's who you know. We've all heard that. We've been trained on that. Some of us have benefited from that. I myself have. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've gotten at least 2 jobs from being a member of Phi Beta Sigma. Like, because, somebody else that was in the fraternity longer than me or was an executive or whatever was like, hey, seen it on your resume, come interview. I like you. You know what I mean? Like, literally, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know. But at the same time, man, if you not sweet, or if you just not a solid person, you in for a rude awakening. You in for a rude awakening. Olguy, what you thinking, man?
Danielle, I gotta jump into this, because the one thing that I like to do when we have these conversations is, I don't want to just say yes, yes. It's better. She said, I have to quote her, because she said it's better to give than to receive, and I agree with that statement. But then I can rebuttal and say you can only give what you have. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes people assume that you can just keep on giving and giving and giving and giving. And if you keep saying, well, it's better to give than to receive, then what happens when you don't have nothing else to give? What happens when now it's about a survival piece? And I think that, and when we talk about network, I want to be very clear, because network, it's a general statement.
Yeah.
Now, we can actually now close it into, there's business network, because that's a
Sure.
whole nother network.
Sure.
Because I'm gonna be
Yep.
honest with you, you don't need to be a good person to have a business network. I'm gonna be completely blunt with you with that one, because I've met, and again, I'm speaking off of the things that I've dealt with,
Yeah.
being in China and having to deal with different factories. I could tell you right now, whether he's a good person or not, you need to go through him in order to get these shoes to come to the United States.
Wow. Yeah.
So he's not the best person, but guess what? I have to go through you. You're the person that I have to go through. So there's, you kind of have to look at it and say, okay, well, at what point are you willing to be diplomatic? That's why for me, part of networking is also knowing how to be diplomatic, knowing how to play your cards right, knowing how exactly when to say, okay, it's time for me to go full in. It's time for me to entertain a little bit. It's time for me to stern back while still keeping your personality and your values.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very important.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to tap on that a little bit because I agree with the statement. But then again, you know, when people try to feed off of that, then what happens when you don't have nothing else to give? Then what? And at what point? I mean, it's like a leash. A leash is not never going to say, "Hey, I'm done. I'm done sucking off of you." No, it's going to stay there until there's nothing else there, which means you're no longer there. Your flesh is done, and before it leaves. So when people already latch on, and you let them latch on, understand that at that point you're allowing that. And networking, you have to know who and how to utilize it. And again, I'm basing it me specifically on business networking. We do have our personal networking, our fraternal networking, like you mentioned. I mean, I could tell you right now, as an undergrad, when I used to have to travel to go to other, you know, different venues or other schools or parties, and I didn't want to get a hotel, I hit up a bruh, right?
Yeah.
Hey, frat, what's up? I'm from you, blah, blah. And then boom, there you go. Off of that network, because we're part of the same fraternity, I now have a place to sleep, eat, and lay my head. So I understand that. But now on a business perspective, that can be a little bit different. So I mean, I love your point again, Danielle. I just wanted to reference that. At what point do you not, if you don't have anything to give, what do you do at that point?
No, this is good. This is why this is dialogue. But I agree. But then you also got to be a beast. Like I feel like I'm a beast. You know, I feel like nah, you're not about to keep getting that off on me. You know, everybody's not, you know, secure. But you gotta be no, we done with that. I done gave you a little bit of too much. Now we finished, you know, what you gotta do. You know, but I understand what you're saying. That's because not everyone is like that. So then it's a little harder for someone to say, well, no, let's not do that. So I agree. I think this is good. This is giving a whole bunch of ingredients to this podcast. I like that.
So let me ask a question because we're talking about networking, and one of the things that was mentioned early on was, and to Danielle's point, you know, it is more blessed to give than receive, and I hear what Olgui's saying also, but can you afford to take in someone who's networking and they're a little rough around the edges? What I mean by that is they don't quite know how to network. So you show them how to network, or this is their early career opportunity and they may be coming to you directly out of school and you don't necessarily know what their work ethic is like. Can you afford to take that risk of possibly getting burnt on the back end?
Man.
Or is it worth the risk as far as, you know, if they turn out to be a stellar employee or they turn out to be a stellar business connect? Can you take that risk?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think that something, Marcus, that I've always leaned on was something that my spiritual father, Pastor Eric White, told me years ago, was that people come to do 4 different things, and you got to kind of figure those things out early in a relationship. People come to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Right? So one of those 4 things. Now, the only 2 things that are positive are multiply and add. Subtract and divide are not positive attributes. You got to be able to sniff those out. It's difficult though. I think that's where you do have to use that discernment. Like if you do have somebody that's fresh out of school, I think it's worth it to put them through the paces to see what they're willing to do. I'm not saying full on pledge them, but what I am saying is we have a strict no hazing policy at the School of HardKnox. But I think though, Marcus, like for example, to your point, somebody straight out of school, they come to you and they say, "Hey, can you vouch for me? Can you write me a letter of recommendation?" I think it's well within your rights to give them some type of homework. To be like, "Hey, I'll vouch for you if you can do X, Y, and Z." Right? If you can get on a Zoom call with me for 30 minutes and tell me what you want your future to look like. If you can give me one of your papers that you wrote when you were a senior and break it down for me. Like just something, right? Something to where they feel like they got a little skin in the game and they did something to get something. Because again, going back to most of you guys' original point, you're only as valuable as the last thing you did, technically speaking. And the last thing you did is going to carry you on to the next thing you're going to do. And in order to do that, you need to translate that value to someone else. I'm at the point now in my career and professionally where people seek value from me. Early on, it was me seeking value from other people. Now I realize that I have a lot to contribute to the situation. I'm still seeking value from others, don't get me wrong, but I'm kind of in that middle. I'm in that middle boat, right? So yeah, in order to go higher, you've got to pull people up. You really do. I mean, especially in our community, we need more people to pull people up. We really do. Olguy, what you got, man? I see those wheels spinning.
It's not really. Man, Marcus is on point today with all these like.
You know what I'm saying? Marcus out here,
Danielle
man.
Marcus, they just hitting. So I'm always gonna try to peel it. You know, we're all entrepreneurs. We're all business people here, so I'm always gonna try to swing it a little bit towards a business aspect. So if you look at it, when he says, "Hey, if someone, you show them how to network," someone comes to you and say, "Hey, can you show me how to network?" And what are the risks involved? So the first thing I look at it as an investor. When you come and you pitch to an investor that I have a product or I have this, and you are having to ask, I need this amount for this. The first thing you want to lay out is the risk involved and is the due diligence already done. So when someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, I want to network," uh, you know, first question I ask them is, "What is network?" Do you even know what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times people hear things or watch stuff on TV and they want to come and shoot it back to you without even understanding what they're talking about. So I need you to understand what you're talking about first before we can even dive into it. And again, there's the Webster dictionary version of it, and there's the subjective version, which can be opinionated. And the risk involved lays on how much you're willing to give and how much you're willing to also take. Because a lot of times, when we take on mentors or mentees, or when we decide to say we're gonna open up a business,
Yeah.
while we even do the business plans, you still have the miscellaneous and the unaccounted for that can happen. So the risk factor is there. What we try to do is just minimize it, to a point where it's not as big if we do take a fall, or if it is that big, then maybe we should try to pivot, or maybe just step out and find something that's different.
Exactly.
So, to all of that to come is to pretty much say, I'm always big when it comes to the youth. When it comes to the youth that want to drive and start and drive into something entrepreneur wise, networking wise, I'm always going to see the potential. Now, of course, with that potential comes my time, and my time is valued. So, of course, my vetting process is going to be more in the sense of understanding what they want from networking. What do they gain from it? What are they going to do? What are they going to use? Or how are they going to use that networking? Because I feel like we all network in our own individual ways. We just have to know how to niche it to what we're specifically trying to do.
Sure.
If I'm trying to network, to get into a marketing agency, for example, my strategy for networking there won't be the same as if I'm trying to get a factory to run my shoes. Those are two different networkings, and you have to be flexible, dynamic. You can't be static and saying, well, this is the formula that works and that's
Yeah.
it. Because what might work over here might not necessarily work over there in your networking platform.
Yeah.
So you have to very much be dynamic as the entrepreneur, as the individual, to know that, okay, I have to be able to diversify my portfolio and my networking space.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. And that also, like I said, minimizes your risks for sure.
Now, in a sense of being able to decipher between two types of networking, I want to really direct this next question to Danielle. The difference, Danielle, between your social circles and your marketplace. Right now, your lines, I would say, out of everybody on the call, your lines are probably blurred the most, right? Because your social circle is also your target demographic,
Right.
for your products, right? So how do you decide when to keep somebody in? You remember I used to call it a friend zone. How do you decide when to keep somebody in the social circle zone or the customer? Like, this person's a customer. This person is, I'm going to, I hate to use this term, I'm going to use this person to, further my cause. Like, how do you navigate that?
I think having business mentors is so crucial.
Okay.
because I did at the beginning really have issues with that.
Hmm.
Because before I was 100%, LLC website, it was me having to talk to people and really have these conversations about products and about what they want,
Yeah.
which made it a little bit like, well, you my peoples, like
Yeah.
up, and so it was difficult, but I had a couple talks with my mentor, and she was able to kind of give me just a couple, I guess we all call them like gems, things to say. And it also made me hurry up and get a website.
Okay.
Because what happened is if you don't have a website, you're gonna get those calls, you're gonna get people, you get to negotiate a little bit.
Yeah.
But once I got my website, everybody, even family, except if you're my mom or my brother or my dad, everybody goes to the website.
So it kind of put up a bit of a fence, right?
Yes, you
Yeah.
want to be completely legitimate,
Mm-hmm.
because then it is gonna always bleed that blur line for you. It's always
Mm-hmm.
gonna be, hey, what's up? Can I get that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say, because not everybody wants a website, not everybody has that lane, but if you want to be a professional, you got to be all the way a professional. You have to really have those lines of separation where you, like, what, like, this is a business, and have those conversations. And if they're your friend or your social, they will understand,
Yeah.
because they know this is a business, and you have to learn how to separate those things. I mean, it's not easy, because it wasn't for me at first. It took a little time because I was new and I was a little bit softer. But after time has gone past, it's been a little bit easier to have those open conversations and be able to say, like, this is a business. I still have to make a living off of this. So I think if you it's all about the people that are around you, and that is so important for me. And when I who's for you and who's not for you. So when you get those vibes, or you get those pushbacks, or you get those people who don't want to follow, hey, well, get that off the website,
Yeah.
then it's time to cut ties.
Man.
You just really a customer. Please don't call my phone. Please don't text me. Don't do none of that. So it's just learning your boundaries and setting those tones for people.
So I mean, how do you approach? And this is for anybody. How do you approach? Your messaging, and to be quite honest, Marcus, from a nonprofit standpoint, which is the direction you're going in, right? I mean, I don't know. Do you consider yourself an activist, or what do you consider yourself at this point in the game, Marcus? Just I want to classify it correctly.
So for me, I still consider myself as an advocate. Now,
Okay.
where I go from advocate to activist is when I'll post something on Instagram and say, hey, insulin isn't as cheap as water. And you get somebody that shows up and says, yes, it is. Trump did this. And they're unwilling to listen to the experiences and the facts that I'm able to present to them. Or they say, oh, you're incorrect.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I become an activist, because at that point, you're trying to discredit my experience, and you're not even able to look at the facts that are presented. And particularly as it pertains to any sort of executive order, all you hear is somebody say, well, he signed that and that's taken care of, and blah, blah, blah. But without studying it and without knowing what all it entails, or better yet, knowing why it's not in effect and how
Yeah.
it's impacted by people or people that are in the diabetic community,
Uh huh.
if you're not willing to listen to that, that is where it becomes problematic. I feel like if you're going to come to the table to say, well, no, that's incorrect, you better have your facts and you better have your ducks in a row. Because if you don't, that's where it's going to get interesting for me. So I still advocate for I can advocate for lower drug prices. I can advocate for lower insulin costs. I can post facts about it and all that stuff. But for me, even when it comes to being in the nonprofit sector, you still have to know. I still got to know my stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I have to, because it gives accreditation. It validates my voice.
Sure.
I can come to the table with experience, and I can talk about how, I struggled to pay for insulin, or I can talk about how someone else may have passed away because they weren't able to afford their insulin, or things of that nature, or even talking about, random experiences that you have in the grocery store where you see somebody who has to make the decision between you know, getting their groceries or getting their insulin, and trying to fight whether or not they want to swipe their credit card for it.
Mm-hmm.
Sharing those experiences gives validation to it, but knowing the facts and the policies and stuff helps to create that voice. So when I get in those sectors where I'm having to speak to people that are higher ups at pharmaceutical companies, or even to your politicians, knowing what you're talking about, if that makes sense. I hope I answered the question. I just didn't want to run off on a tangent.
No, I mean, I think the point of it is understanding your target, understanding your target market,
Absolutely.
understanding who you're speaking to, right? So when you do get into these arguments on Facebook, or when you get into these sessions where you're trying to prove your point to somebody about something that to be factually correct, again, is that even your marketplace? Right? Because in those conversations, Marcus, frankly, you could damage your own reputation, and the person who you're arguing with can just keep scrolling and go on their merry way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. But if I know the fact that if I know the voice of the market is to educate people who are uneducated,
Mm-hmm.
to bring it to their attention to the point where it says, oh, well, maybe he may have been right, then I'm willing to risk having that discussion or that heated debate on some of these social media networks.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. They don't have my phone number. They don't have an email address.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know where I work. So even if they wanted to have these conversations, the only place that they can really talk about it is social media.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's where I have to use that voice to reach out to that market, then so be it.
Yeah.
I'm willing to risk it if I'm able to educate someone to say, hey, maybe he's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Olguy, in the same vein, obviously Danielle touched on kind of the not so fun part, right, of having a social circle marketplace. Marcus obviously is touching on it from a social media standpoint and being able to defend his position. From you having a brand that is international, right, that appeals to a certain demographic of people, but is also medically, it's backed by medical study, right? Your technology. What's the approach to defend that particular science? Because I know you've had contradictory approaches. I know you've been approached to say, hey, that's not right, or, your stuff is wrong. Like, what's that approach like? And again, we're talking about networking, social circles, right? Keeping everything tight. What do you say to that, Olguy?
Well, I mean, Marcus is on fire today, man. I feel like he was meant to have this podcast with me.
We should just put him on the, just put him on the large screen itself and just let him go.
Y'all hitting it, guys. She did good. She did say we was gonna have a nice little vibe. I was like, man, I will be completely honest with you. When I first started, and I launched the website and I introduced the shoe.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I did was let me get my target audience. Let me target this. So I focused on runners, people that are active, people that are joggers, from your avid runners to your marathon runners to just your people that just want to stay in shape. And when I posted up my first commercial, the shoe rotating and it's talking about the science. Again, this is when we first literally hit, the shoe was just here our first time. I got a couple of likes, and then I had one person that wrote on my page and said, "This is a joke."
Woo!
And part of I was hurt. I was not hurt. I lied. I was mad.
Yeah,
I was mad.
Yeah,
I wasn't hurt. I was mad. I'm like, what? And then I didn't respond. Took some time to say, okay, this is social media. You got to be careful of how you're responding because you got a couple thousand views on this now. Then he was like, and then he said to me, and he responded again and went back in there after a couple of days and said, why wouldn't you want a heel strike? We walk and land on our heels, so why wouldn't we run on our heels?
Mm-hmm,
and at that point, it dawned to me that you gotta educate the consumer, and that can tap into your acquisition cost if you want to sit there and literally try to educate the consumer.
Yeah.
And at that point, I said, well, I can sit there and go at this dude, or better yet, I'm not even gonna argue with you. Because at that point, if I start doing this, we can go on for, because clearly he didn't go onto the website. Clearly he didn't read the science behind it all. So that's when I knew I'm not going to engage. So all I did was I just tagged the science behind it all page and send it to him and said, well, here you go. Take a look at that. If you think I'm just coming up and just making things up. So here's what you have to realize. No matter how much you hit your target audience, when you start to populate, meaning that when you get someone that's a runner, but now he shares it to a personal page where there's not runners, or he starts to do this, you're going to start to have that spider web effect where you're branching out. So you can try to target as much, but you're also going to reach out to other audiences, which is it could be a good thing as well as a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. Right. And tapping into the network is, even when you have conversations with people, you want to, and like, I understand where Marcus is coming from when you're like, now you better come with some facts, because I was in a room. I have to say this real fast. I was in a room because I understand exactly where it's coming from, but this is where the diplomacy and the tactfulness of networking kicks in, because we were in a room, and I'm talking to a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, investors, and people that are in the room, and we're sitting there, and I get introduced to this one gentleman, and he is a huge investor in startups and everything like that. So we have a conversation, and I get to telling him what my product is, and again, it's educating the consumer. He didn't really understand why heel striking is a problem. He didn't understand the injuries associated with it. And then he said to me, and then I remember he asked me, he's like, "Well, if this is so new and innovative, how come Nike didn't think about it?"
Uh-oh.
Now, it is at that point
It is at that point where you go from
I was
diplomatic
just
to
like, Sir Marcus, like, okay, I'm gonna give you some strong facts, but then I have to remember who I was in the room with, and I have to remember that, okay, Olguy, you're here to network. Don't take this personal. Understand that maybe your response to him, these other 5 people in here that you're trying to talk to and get these contact information, might blow that. So I had to pivot from that conversation to engage with him, to give him those hard facts,
Yeah.
because I saw what the end goal was.
Yeah.
Granted, I really wanted to dive in there and engage, because clearly he didn't know what he was talking about. But again, part of networking, especially on a business side, is knowing when to engage and knowing when to just fall back and kind of flow with it, because you know what the end goal is.
Absolutely.
And people looking from the outside in might say, "Oh, you weak, you didn't do this, you didn't do that." But you, as an entrepreneur, understand what the end goal is, and at that particular moment, you have to now have that sense of fortitude in order to know what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. So listen, I really appreciate you guys sharing the contradictory marketing that you've come or networking that you've come up against. I do want to give you each an opportunity to share your organization. Obviously, you've heard Olguy talking about the heelless technology. For those of you who are curious, this is an example of that heelless technology, right? So I'll let Olguy talk about, what the shoe is and what he does with his particular company, and then I also have a nice piece of accessory, I guess is what we call it, right, Danielle? From Danielle. So we've got that there. This is for my YouTube squad right here. And then we've also got, look at this, my wonderful executive producer has pulled up a screenshot from Netflix for Mr. Marcus and what he's got going on. So I'm going to ask Olguy to begin. Just give us a quick synopsis of the organization, man. Let them know where they can follow you, the website. You guys, listen, it's very important that we get out of the mindset of supporting people. Okay. And here's what I mean by that, because I don't want you to get confused. I'm straight up saying buy something from these individuals, not in support. Buy something from these individuals because the product, as Danielle said, is legit. It speaks for itself. Buy it because the product is what it needs to be, not because you like them. Because if you buy it just because you like them, or if you buy it just because I asked you to, number one, it's going to be a one-time sale. And number two, you're not going to understand the value, and they're not going to realize the value that they're giving you because you did it as a favor to me. Right. So we need to get out of the mindset of supporting. These are businesses. These are not charities. They don't need donations. They want sales. OK, so let me just say that first. But then, Olguy, go ahead and let us know, man, where we can, purchase your product.
Absolutely. Well said. First of all, that was well said. So you could definitely go onto our website, which is smthedifference.com. We have our social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram are the same. It's SM The Difference. And, to touch bases real quick on the shoe. So that is the heelless technology shoe. And as you can see, when he had it up there, it has no heel. And the purpose of it having no heel is to eliminate you from putting any pressure on your heel. And specifically for runners, because when runners are jogging or running, what happens is they have a time of suspension where 2 to 3 times their body weight hits the ground. And if you're hitting your ground and your first phase of impact is with your heel, there is no shock absorbing mechanism that is there to resist that impact as you're hitting the ground. And what happens is when a lot of these athletes, especially runners, are doing this repetitive motion of heel striking, they start to experience injuries. Most common ones, if anyone here is a jogger or a runner, but like shin splints, flat feet, knee problems, lower back problems, and all type of musculoskeletal injuries. So we developed this technology to eliminate heel strike, which will what first of all, you don't ever have to worry about landing on your heel. It will maximize your performance. It will sustain your comfortability, and it will give you that all around comfort. And the best thing about these shoes that I like, it's not just for runners. I want to make sure I say that very well. It's not just for runners. Anyone that just wants to experience less injuries. For example, people that are on their feet for long periods of time, those in the medical field, those in the beauty industry. If you're standing on your feet for periods of time and you start to experience those lower back problems, you need the difference. If you are an athlete and you want to start to get back to being active, but you was a little scared because of the injuries that you had prior, here are the difference.
That's right.
If you are someone that just naturally just wants to just experience something new to get a better feel, there it is. And also I want to mention for Marcus, because Marcus didn't mention he is a diabetic. We're actually getting ready to launch, and because we just found out that diabetics that have neuropathy wear our shoes, and the reasons because they have phase 1 and phase 2 where they have to offload, and offloading means that they should take pressure off their heel. And so now we're actually getting ready to do the clinical study research for
Wow.
that and get the seal of approval
Amazing.
from the Podiatry Medical Association, so we can actually put those claims now with our shoes, where we can say these shoes are for diabetics
Amazing.
with neuropathy. So that's the difference, and I hope that everybody can come and join us.
That's
Let's
right.
all begin to heal the heel.
Yes, sir. Marcus, tell us where we can.
Style, man.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
Give these diabetic shoes some style, man. All they got is out this those two big strap-on shoes, man. It's pretty bad. Like as bad as some diabetic socks.
I don't even know if like, is it okay to laugh? Okay, it's okay to laugh. All right, cool.
It's fine to laugh.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
It's fine. It's fine.
Where can we find out more information about your cause, Marcus?
You can follow me on Instagram at Marcus LaCour. Facebook is just my name, Marcus LaCour. I'm not on Twitter as much, but you can literally see most of my posts for P4AD on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a website. I think the link is it's on Instagram as well. So if you're interested in learning about the cause and knowing what P4AD is about and the purpose and the mission behind it all, how it got started and where we're at today, please feel free to click the link, find the pictures. My story and my blog is on there also, just to kind of highlight some of the struggles that I've been through.
Excellent.
But also lets you know where I'm at today. One of the things that I love to mention, is by the grace of God, I've got an insulin pump and a continuous glucose monitor now. But I do this for the people that don't have access to that stuff.
Yeah.
I do it for the people who are still struggling to afford insulin. I do it for the people who don't know the coupons that are out there that make insulin $35. Now, granted, they shouldn't have to get a coupon to get their insulin, but this is stuff that your pharmacist will not know about. I guarantee it. So being able to be a resource to people while they're in the thick of it is huge for me. Now, whether or not they click on the pictures or they follow or they get the coupon, it's on them. But they can't say that those resources aren't out there and they're not present and not made available.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, man. That's extremely important. I definitely encourage everybody to follow and support, even if you're not in that particular situation personally. I guarantee you that you know somebody who is, and they may not be speaking up. They may just be stomaching the cost. They may just be dealing with it, right? Something like that,
rationing their insulin.
Or rationing their insulin. I mean, and honestly, Marcus, I mean, if somebody's in that situation, man, that it could be a pride thing where they just don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? Or they've been getting by for so long with doing it kind of like not the right way that they just think it's normal. You know what I mean? Which obviously is causing more damage. So we definitely appreciate you, man. We definitely appreciate you. Danielle, I want you to tell us about your company and how you are making all of these women feel beautiful, and just yeah, because you got some. Listen, I'm gonna show y'all again because my wife. She be. I always know when she's wearing your stuff because she make a whole bunch of noise when she walking through the house. Yeah.
OMG, yes,
Yes.
by DPT.
Yeah, I think.
Follow me on
Same.
Instagram.
So,
Yeah, go ahead and follow that. See,
you
you
know what I
got
mean?
nice wrist game.
Yeah,
Right?
there we go. Ain't that how y'all? Yeah.
That's how we do it. We like to talk with our hands. But Destined by DPT is really just to enhance the already beauty that women, no matter your size, no matter the color, it's really about just feeling good, because there were times where I didn't feel good about my body. I wasn't confident in myself. So I sometimes used accessories to kind of make me look better, And so whatever you can do, so when you walk out that house that you feel 100% confident about yourself, come on over to www.destinedbydpt. I got a line of a little bit of everything. I have curvy t-shirts that express how beautiful plus size women are, and I wear it with confidence. It's really just about loving yourself. It's so many other people dying every day. We just listening to all of these stories that are amazing. I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I'm a cancer survivor. I don't necessarily um, use my platform a lot. I've used it before to talk about it, but just listening to your story, it's touching, because you don't know what people go through. And God is good, okay? I mean, I'm not sure
Amen.
entrepreneurs,
Yes,
I
he
need y'all
is.
to know, y'all better pray for that business, your brand, your everyday life,
That's right.
because God is good. So none of us will have anything that we have right now. I'm talking about the breath in your lungs, any of that, if it wasn't for the God on our side.
Amen.
So on those days when you tired, on those days when you don't want to have that meeting, on those days when you don't want to go extra hard on your brand, on them days where you feel like giving up, I'm talking about you get on those knees and you talk to God and ask him to give you that strength, that grace, and that mercy to get you through. Okay. And then come on over and holler at me. Danielle_DPT on Instagram, and Danielle P. Thompson on Facebook. Thanks.
Hey, listen, guys. This has been an amazing episode. I appreciate each and every one of you, obviously for availing yourselves to record this show, but just for putting your personal stories out there, being authentic, being transparent. Welcome to the alumni society of the School of Hard Knocks. We got some more exciting things coming up for our people that are watching us on YouTube. That's going to be just about the end of the broadcast. So if you guys want to stick around on actual podcasting platforms, that would be great. But we will be back in 15 seconds.